You're live. It's showtime. I love how this thing counts down for me. And as soon as I sit down, it's like, oh, wow, I have 5 seconds left. How is everybody doing? I am so excited for today. Today is a magical day. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we do the unit sections according to the chakras. So right now, this unit is the crown chakra. So it's going to be very spiritual. Everything we talk about is either mind, body, or spirit. This one is going to encompass a little bit of everything, mostly energy, so that we can understand it from a different point of view. Numbers is going to be a way that we're going to understand energy. So I'm very excited because this, after all, was what got me to where I am today. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for angel numbers. So I am very excited about how this could affect you, what it means to you. Hopefully you can get some of my story and it resonate with you. And then also the slides. The slides have a lot of information. These are jam-packed with information that you might want to come back and rewatch, because the second time around always hits you differently than the first time. So it would be good to kind of get that second time around and like understand it from a different point of view. Good morning. So let's see who's here for right now. Before I get started, how many of you have seen repeating numbers lately? A lot, because I know I have. I actually was like, hey, I want to see some repeating numbers between now. This was last week and my next training, and it's been bombarding like numbers everywhere, back and forth, palindrome numbers, which we're going to go over, emails, 111, like just crazy, every single day, like on the hour, every hour. So I'm excited because that means they're listening. I'm going to break apart what it means as far as angels goes and what that refers to with light. Let me just make sure I'm on here. Okay. All right. Hey, Suzanne, I see you now. All right. So basically, let's get into a lot. It's going to be a lot of information. So get ready. Let's see. All right. We're going to go over the history a little bit, what it means, and then we're going to break down each and every single number, and then also a little bit of my story woven in there. Hey, Faith. Yep, 1111, the number that brings everything into fruition. I love it. All right, so let's go into what is numerology. So in simple terms, let me make this big, first of all. All right, in simple terms, numerology is a study of numbers in your life. You can uncover information about the world and also each individual person by using numerology. Numerology is seen as a universal language of numbers. So it's kind of like astrology. If you're familiar with astrology, then you may know a little bit about numerology. Kind of goes hand in hand. It's similar in quite a few ways, but uses a different method to get the information and insight, which is numbers. They are consistent and they will get your attention until you listen. Numerology is the idea that the universe is a system, and once broken down, we're left with the basic elements, which are numbers. These numbers, like 1 and 0, 1 and 0, these numbers can then be used to help us to better understand the world and ourselves as individuals. Hi, I see you. Okay, so the history of numerology. Let's go a little bit back before we go forward. Where numerology came from and how it came to be is somewhat of a mystery. Like many ancient philosophies, Egypt and Babylon are where the earliest written records of numerology are said to be. Other evidence shows that numerology was used thousands of years ago in Rome, China, Greece, and Japan. It's really sprinkled everywhere, but modern day numerology is normally credited to Pythagoras, who was a Greek philosopher. And although it's not known if he invented numerology, he had some theories behind it, which took numbers to a completely different level. And these theories are now the reason why behind Pythagoras having the credit for modern day numerology. So you have the Pythagorean theorem, and that stems from him. Oops. All right, so repeating and palindrome numbers. 111, 1111. What does it mean? So a lot of you that are seeing 1111 and 111, things like that, It's a spiritual wake-up call. It's like, hey, I know you see me. I'm trying to show you that there's something outside of the physical that is creating you to see me, like me as in the numbers, constantly, right? And so it kind of starts to make you go, how is this possible? How is it that I'm seeing these numbers and I'm not going crazy? Because I know I'm seeing them. And a lot of people will call it hocus pocus, and that it's not, that it's in your mind. But isn't everything in our mind? Our entire world, our entire thoughts, our beliefs, everything stems from our mind. And so I'm going to go back. Messenger particles are photons. Photons is light. So we have this higher light. We have this higher consciousness of understanding, an intelligent light that is not only are we getting this information, but we also are light. Our soul is light inside. It's a higher light that is controlling this body, right? We have mind, body, spirit. The spirit, the light that's within us all, is basically messenger particles, photons. So they're messengers. We have our light speaking with different other formats of light. And just because we cannot see it doesn't mean it's not there. Like we have our electromagnetic spectrum all around us, and yet we don't see it. But it's there. We radiate it. We are electric, we're magnetic, and yet it's in the non-physical. So just like we see the 7 colors of the light spectrum, doesn't mean that there's not others that we can't see because they're a lot higher. So what this is doing is basically those non-visible, higher light, higher intelligent, conscious light photon messenger particles are sending information to us. And we are receiving it because the light within us is kind of nudging us and going, hey, look at the clock. Hey, look at this. Hey, look at that. And we're receiving it. So a lot of this has to do with, are you paying attention? Are you paying attention to what the messages are trying to tell you? Because a lot of times we're so consumed with our everyday life and everything that we do, and we're so consumed with our mental chatter and our depression and what's going on and our drama, that we don't pay attention to what spirit or higher consciousness or light is trying to tell us. And at the end of the day, God is light. So we are just basically in the image of God. We are light as well. And so besides, when you get over the physical part, you can see how everything communicates. And so 222 manifestation, 1 becomes 2, you have multiplicity. These are just a few, but then we're going to break everything down. 33 represents Christ consciousness, universal nurturing, social consciousness raised to a world class. Worldly responsibility, you have the master teachers and healer. 33 is a higher octave of 6, which is the flower of creation. It's also the 33 vertebrates that we come in with, which then later 5 of them become fused as 1, which we're going to talk about that. And then 444, all is well, foundation, humanity, and then so on and so forth. So repeating numbers are just a way to get your attention. And now palindrome numbers, which is very interesting. I remember going, and a lot of this is just, are you receiving the message? Are you believing and trusting that you can decode or understand what it's trying to tell you? A lot of it is just you talking to yourself. It's like everything that you can really decode is done in silence. When you hear messages, it's in silence. So it's in between the silence of things that we understand and really take in the message. And so a lot of times, we feel validation, right? When we get these numbers. But there was a point in time when I was like, okay, I'm seeing you, I'm seeing all your numbers, but I still want more validation. So I want to see more of it. And I started seeing palindrome numbers, which are basically like 1441, where the number is the same going forward as it is backwards. 242, 232, 343, things like that. And I was seeing them constantly, and I would Google it and I would try to find out, what are palindrome numbers having to do with, like, why are they showing up in my life? And one day, finally, I was just sitting there and I just asked myself, or my angels, or the angles of light, why are you showing me palindrome numbers? And just as clear as day, the message came back with, well, you wanted to see more numbers, and this is the best way to get it across because there's more chances of seeing palindrome numbers than repeating numbers. So I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Thank you. And now I see them constantly. So it just depends on what you communicate with yourself. It just the communication between, let's just say, the light or these angels, and they're coming back at you with numbers. And so you get to a point where you start communicating, constantly. Like, I see a number and I know what it means. And then I'm like, oh, is it da 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 da? And then I see something else and then I know what that means. And you start basically communicating with numbers like you're a machine. All right, so let's get on to the next thing. Let's see. Do you see repeating numbers? I thought this was an amazing, funny meme because we've seen it all the time. You know, I don't always look at the clock, but when I do, it's 111, 222, 333, 444, etc. So this is something that's happening because it's trying to get your attention. And a lot of my left brain was like, how does this work? Like, how does this really function? And this is what got me into wanting to understand spirituality and wanting to understand how spirit communicates and energy and how it all works. And this was the beginning of my story, really. So it was back January 11th of 2014. I had in 2012 and 2013, the big dark night of the soul where your life is crumbling down and you're feeling like you have nothing left. And it wasn't until January 11th in 2014 that I started seeing 111s. And it was this whole new beginning, this fresh air of like, I had just finished or ended something and now I was beginning something new. It was a new chapter in my life. And this is what just started everything for me. So the number 1 is the God, the logos. It has no name. Before the name God, it was just trying to reach goodness, trying to reach good. Can you find good? Can you find the highest good of yourself, the highest consciousness of yourself? Good became God, etc. Evil became devil when you add a D in front of it. But it's the play on of words and etymology that combines everything together. Who said that? I'm going to see it 30 seconds later because there's a lag. So it's new beginnings, new chapters, positive thinking. So when you see 111, it's like, what are you thinking at the time? Because this can lead you to something of a brand new beginning, a brand new chapter for you. So this is an example. This is a Fool card in the tarot cards. And it means, number 1, the Fool depicts a youth walking joyful into the world. He's taking his first steps and he's exuberant, joyful, excited. He carries nothing with him except a small sack, carrying nothing for the possible dangers that lie in his path. 1 is the beginning of your journey. So like, think of when you're starting something new and you're so excited and you don't know what's going to come of it. You don't know the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9s that are going to come about. You're just in the 1 phase where you're just getting ready to start something new and you're very excited. That's what that means. All right, the second one is harmony and balance. So this is when 1 becomes 2. Let me make sure we're all here. 1 becomes 2. Oh, hey, Kevin, I see you. All right, so the number 2 is the body and the soul. It's you and God. Number 1 was just God. I'm sorry, I'm reading the comments. So number 2 is usually associated to harmony, balance, consideration, and love. It's duality. It's the yin and the yang, the male and the female energy. It's manifestation. You could see here on the card how you have the spine, or it's the caduceus, but you have the spine and then the female and male energy up to Christ consciousness. The lion is spirit. And then you have the cherubim wings that are in your brain. So this is basically raising yourself up to a higher consciousness. Number 3 is Trinity. Now, if you don't have the handout, Carol can send you the handout because it's to write down what numbers stand out to you, what numbers speak to you. You can take some notes, etc. So Trinity and new life. All right, so this new life is about resurrection. It's creativity. It's something of a new mind. We can say that the number 3 is associated with the Trinity. It means that you've received the protection, guidance, and help from divine forces. Your angels are protecting you and giving you support and strength. So this is when I see the 3s, I see like a master angel, a master higher consciousness. Its roots stem from the meaning of multiplicity, creative power, growth. 3 is a moving forward of energy, overcoming duality, expression, manifestation, and synthesis. So 3 is the first number to which the meaning of all was given. It's the triad, being the number of the whole as it contains the beginning, the middle, and an end. The power of 3 is universal in nature as heaven, earth, and the waters, and then in humans as body, soul, and spirit. 3 is birth, life, and death. 3 is a complete cycle unto itself, and it's past, present, and future. So 3 is a very important number. Let's go into more of it. Here is a good example of 3 used metaphorically in the Bible. So we have Jonah in the whale for 3 days, and you have Jesus in the tomb 3 nights. So we're going to explain this a little bit further. The ship that he was in, Jonah, the ship represents your body. So it's your ego, your mind, right? So he's on his ship and he's controlling everything. Your ego is controlling things. And it's not until the storm hits and you're lost in the waters in confusion that the fish, which represents wisdom, which represents God, overpowers and overtakes you. And you have the 3 days that it was in the whale. It's because 3 is bringing you new life. It's bringing you, taking you from the storm and into something new. God taking over and having consumption of, it's no longer the mind taking over, the ego taking over. It's the God part within you that's taking over. The same thing applies to the 3 nights in the tomb, where it's metaphorically explained also in the story of how our sun works. And as the sun goes through its cycle and has its winter solstice on December 21st, the sun sits at the bowels of the earth for 3 nights before it starts beginning to move forward again and up again on December 25th. So the same thing as it happens above happens below. And so we see the same thing as the 3 days that we have to be going within in order to reach ascension. And that goes into a lot more deeper stuff that I don't go into in this training, but I do in my courses. But they're both metaphorically speaking about the same thing. It's new life. It's God taking over. It's God. It's the whole beginning, middle, and end of it all. If that makes sense. Yep, the master number 33. So we have the spiritual, the emotional, the physical, and the intellectual for number 4. This is our 4-fold nature. This is pretty interesting. The 4 points of the compass equals humanity. We have our 4-fold nature, which is emotional, spiritual, intellectual, and physical. And so the emotional is always red with anger, red with emotions. You have intellect, which is black. It's always the left side of the brain. It's always the west side. The west is where the dark encroaches onto the light. The light is always on the east. It's where the light starts to come up. So it's your right side hemisphere, your right brain. And so that's the spirit. The spirit is the right. The black intellect is the mind. It's the left. And then you have your physical body. So going further into it, apocalypse is a Greek word which means revelation. Therefore, the 4 horses of revelation. So the book of Proverbs talks about wisdom. And hold on. It says to understand a proverb, the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. Now, we've gone and talked about dark sayings before. Some of you who have not watched it, dark sayings are shoot the bull, green with envy, spill the beans, words that we use symbolically, but not to be taken literal. So somebody who would be taking them literal would completely miss the deeper understanding of what it truly means. So a horse in mysticism symbolizes understanding of your consciousness, understanding of the lower and higher mind, how it works, your ego, your spirit. And so the white horse or Pegasus is higher understanding. And so we already went about how it's the emotions, the intellect, physical lower nature, which is the flesh, And then you have the white horse, which is the spirit. Now, what does that have to do with anything? There's a story in the Bible, and it's about Nebuchadnezzar. Now, don't mind the meme that talks about whatever it's talking about. I just wanted to get what the story was about, and that's what I found. And so this one is about, let me read this part in Daniel. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of providence of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy God, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. So it's a story about how they had put up this gold, what is this thing, image, to serve and to worship. And these Jews, which it says, but he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not men, but of God. So a Jew is one, mystically, it means one who goes inwardly. So what it's talking about is the three who go inwardly, who meditate, refuse to worship this golden figure as their God because they know better. They know that the God within them, Luke 17:21, is within them. And so they don't need that. And so in the story, the Nebuchadnezzar, it says, he spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. In the story, because they didn't listen, they were going to be sent to go into the fire. But he says in here that they were going to put the furnace 7 times. And that should tell you that it's mystically talking about the number 7 and what that means, which we haven't gotten to it yet, but it means divine intervention. And so this means that they were saved from the fire because of divine intervention. And it's not literal. It's just trying to tell you that there's more to the story. The last part of it says, he answered and said, lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. So here you have, the intellect, the physical, you have the emotional. And then the 4th, whom you can't see, looks like the Son of God. So it's the spirit aspect of it. And so that's the story that's trying to talk about your fold for nature and how you get saved pretty much by the spirit. Okay, so it's a lot, so I'm trying to get it all out if I'm talking too fast. That's why I said go back and watch it again while standing up in the middle. Yes, me too. Okay, so the 5 is the 5 senses. You got hearing, tasting, seeing, touching, taste, whatever. You got the 5 senses. So it means mediation, it means sacrifice, it means the 5 senses, sacrificing the 5 senses, and then transformation. It's the middle between, you're in a story and you're in the middle of it, you're transferring from the past to the future, you're just like right in the middle of this huge transformation, right? Change. So when you see 555, it's like, okay, change is coming. I see it coming. Let's get into the examples of it. So Lucifer means bright star. It's luce. It comes from the stem word of light. And so the star has 5 points. When your senses are under control of the higher realm of God, then you have Lucifer, the light with the 5 points taken over by God. But when the star falls, that means the 5 senses are under control of your ego. So you have it here, now it falls. Now you have the 5 senses taken over by your ego. Everything is the 5 senses. That's all you can basically see, right? And that you're focused on. So when you raise them back up to the upper realm, you do that by meditating. You do that by sacrificing the 5 senses and taking no thought. In Matthew, it says take no thought like 5 times, which is talking about sacrificing your senses, taking no thought so that you can cross over from the mind chatter, from the left hemisphere over to the promised land, which is Eden, which is the right hemisphere. So when the flesh is sacrificed, then you have Christ consciousness, the spirit takes over, and ascension begins. And you have ascension waves and periods of how this works. It's not all at once, and sometimes it is. Okay, all this happens in Golgotha, and we all know Golgotha means skull. So this is talking about what's going on in your mind. So these are points and symbols and things that are easy to decode when you see that there's numbers involved, because each number means something. Transformation, see 555. When you see that, just be prepared for the 6, 7, 8, and 9, right? All right, this one's pretty cool. So 6 is doctrines, laws, and religion. It's everything that has to do with rules, government, systems, systems in place. And so we're going to talk about turning water into wine and the symbolism behind the bread and the wine. In John 6:33, the bread of God is manna. The manna from heaven is spiritually symbolic. So here it says, for the bread of God is he which comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. So the bread and wine is symbolic for communing with Christ in the kingdom, which is within you. So if you look at Luke 17:21, which I'm going to say all the time, it says, the kingdom doesn't come with observations. It is within you. It is the kingdom of God is within you. So it's talking about something that happens within you, the manna being symbolic for the wisdom that you get, and turning water into wine is the symbolic nature of water being, alpha, right? The frequency of alpha, and then going to spirit, which would be the wine. So we're going beta, alpha, theta, delta, and then the ethers. So this is all about the renewal of the mind, renewal of having spirit take over versus your ego always taking over. So here you have the 6 water pots. There are 6 water pots of stone after the manner of the purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firksins apiece. So the 6 jars is about turning religion of the letter into the divine essence of the spirit. And if you look at these stories again, you realize, okay, they're not talking about whether something happened or didn't happen. They're talking about what actually happens to you on a daily basis. This is about how do we get from our ego controlling us to letting the spirit take over so that everything runs smoothly. It's guiding us towards ascension. Here is one that says, and as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to the disciples and said, take it, eat it. This is my body. Then he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you, for this my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Now, where is my Father's kingdom? It is inside of you. So it's talking about the Christ within you. And it's talking about spirit being within you, communing with the Christ within you, which you can do at any time, at any point when you meditate and you go deep in thought and you renew from the bottom consciousness to the top higher consciousness. So I hope you're starting to look at these differently, because they're trying to tell you something different than what you've probably heard. Here's another one that's really good about leaving 6 and moving to 7. So it's leaving religion, leaving doctrines, leaving government and systems, and turning it into 7. So leaving that behind and moving on towards perfection, because perfection is the number 7. So in Hebrews 6:1, you have, therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Christ, let us go on to perfection, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works and of faith towards God, of the doctrine of baptisms and of laying of the hands and of resurrection of the dead and of eternal judgment. It's basically saying, let's leave this. We all have to learn differently, right? As a child, we have to learn it one way. But as we grow up and mature, we understand it differently. So then we have to move on from thinking the way that we used to think, which was more childlike, to like, okay, what is the reality of this? How does this help me on a daily? Let's move on to this, really understanding it in a perfection type of way. So 7 is divine intervention. And also feel free to ask questions, because it makes it easier when you guys ask questions. So this is why the government and the elites use 6 so much. Government, ruling, amplifying, 666. Yes, and I'm going to get to what 666 is in another slide, because they do use it for that. Yes. Okay, so the number 7, divine intervention. Here you see the right hemisphere of the brain trying to touch the left hemisphere. The left hemisphere of the brain is the ego, the body, the mind. It's like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need you. Where you see God reaching out and all the angels on the right side, the right mind. So here you have some examples. I'm not going to go over the 7th feast days, but you can see all the 7s that have to do with that and how they're basically all meant to be on 7. But I am going to go over this part. Joshua walked around Jericho 7 times and then the walls fell. So that's divine intervention. All of a sudden, God took over. You have 7 nerve centers from the base of the spine to the top. the 7 chakras. You have Genesis 33:3, where Jacob walked towards Esau and bowed 7 times. So that story is pretty cool. Once you read it and you see that he bowed 7 times, he was basically going, okay, God intervened. I'm forgiving you. When we fed the multitude, how many baskets were left over? 7. These numbers are important. They're not there for no reason. They're there because they're trying to tell us something. The 7 levels towards enlightenment, or 7 points to perfection of purpose. Then you have in Matthew 18:21 and 22, the never-ending perfection, as in to never stop forgiving. That one is a cool. So if you read it, come back to this, get the Bible, read it, and you'll see that it's talking about perfection. It's talking about forgiveness and how it's never ending. 7 years of tribulation. When tribulation comes to your life, God will intervene. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that there's going to be a tribulation of 7 years. It means that when your life is in tribulation, when you're feeling down and you're feeling low, God will intervene. 7 will intervene, divine intervention, and you will have no more tribulation. And then you have the 7 pillars of wisdom, which is a feminine principle. I know I'm talking fast. All right. So 8 is karma. It's rupture, separation. It's also infinity. It's what goes around and comes around. Number 8 is very lucky. It symbolizes wealth, prosperity, power, infinity, and karmic balance. The shape of the number 8 is in a fluid motion. It has no beginning and no end. That's why it's also regarded as the symbol of infinity. I have that on my tattoo. This means that whatever energy you give and send out to the universe will all come back to you in the same manner of frequency. This is law of attraction. Thus, that saying that what goes around comes around. Number 8 also symbolizes karma. The things that are happening in our daily lives are karmic events. It is the consequence of our acts. Therefore, if we want something from the universe, we must put our intention to create it and ask the universe to give it to us. And that is the way karma works. You ask and you shall receive. You put it out there, you state it. Like Kevin always says, speak it and it will come into existence. You have to speak it. You have to say it. You have to think it. You have to, write it. Everything that you put out will come back around, because that is law of attraction. That's how that works. All right, so let's get to 9. 9 is very cool. 9 is human consciousness. 9 is a very important number. You'll see it all across the Bible. It also means Adam's numerical value in Hebrew means 9, and Adam means earth. It is flesh. The earth is flesh. It's the I. It's the ego. It's the man. It's the male. Okay. Whereas Eve would be the female. We both are made in their image, as in male and female both. We both are male and female energy. But then you have your physical, female. But I have a lot of male energy in me. My husband has a lot of female energy. We both have a good mixture of the two. And so the balance of the male and female energy within you is what you're trying to get out of it. So the Bible references, yes, speak it, see it, and feel it. I was like, wait, what was it again? Even though you say it all the time. He is a law of attraction coach. You should check him out, Kevin Brown. And he's always talking about speak it, see it, and feel it. Speak it into existence, see it becoming your reality, feel it as if it's already yours. That is so true. All right. So the Bible references 3.5 years, 42 months, or 3.5 years, also coming out to 1,260 days. Now, when you look at that number, 3 years and 6 months, which is 3.5 years, it goes to 42 months, which if you do that by 30, it ends up being 1,260 days. If you add those numbers together in numerology, you get the number 9. That's talking about consciousness. Anytime you see the number 9 in the Bible, it's talking about consciousness, and not just the number 9, but the things that add up to the number 9. So the beast, for example, you have the number of the beast, which is 666. When you add up 6 plus 6 plus 6, you get 18. You add 18, it gets 9. So here we're talking about consciousness, but we're talking about the lower consciousness. The beast is the lower consciousness, the one that has wars and rapes and does bad things, like the bad part of us, the lower nature, which we can also change and revert to being saved within by going into the higher consciousness, which are the 144,000 that get saved. If you add those numbers up, you get 9. It is speaking about those that go inwardly, that go up to heaven, which is within you, reach the higher consciousness and are saved. versus being in your lower consciousness in the hell that you're in when you're at your lowest. So we have another example with the fish that were caught. This is how you know that they're speaking about consciousness. 153 fish were caught when casting the net to the right side. Jesus said, cast the net to the right side and you will find. They found 153 fish. You add that up, it means 9. Remember, the ship is you. If you cast your energy to the right side of your brain, your hemisphere, you're in meditation where there's no thought, then you will be at the point where you're there, you're saved, you're at a higher consciousness. 153 fish were caught. And so it's basically talking about receiving that wisdom, receiving that higher intelligence, that higher knowing. All right, number 10. Number 10 is completion. It's the cycle that we are just ending, 1 through 10, right? A divine number 10 means return to unity, the fusion of being and not being. The number 10 denotes the completion of a cycle. So you have 1 to 10, boom, I'm done with this cycle. Let's start another one. And so our lives are like chapters. 10 is always like, 10 comes up a lot. And that's always like, hey, watch your intuition, listen to your intuition. It's trying to tell you something. Listen to the highest part of yourself. And so then we're going to skip 11 because we all know that's 1 and 1. And then we're going to go to 12. 12 is also perfection in Hebrew, which corresponds to most ancient zodiacs. The number 12 stands out as one of the most prominent in scripture among numbers such as 3 and 40. The number 12 appears numerous times throughout the Old and the New Testament. Whew, take a break for a second. Okay. 12 things to know about 12 in the Bible. And then after this, we're done. So number 1, Jesus spoke in the temple at the age of 12. This is trying to tell us something again. 12 cakes were placed in the tabernacle. In the Old Testament, tabernacle is a mobile temple of sorts, which is the brain. The priests were to be placed 12 unleavened cakes. Some other elements of 12 in the tabernacle include 12 silver plates, bowls, bulls, rams, and male lambs. It's the 12 cranial nerves that we have in our mind. And they basically are the masters that control everything in our body. So not only Jacob had 12 princes, but Jacob isn't the only descendant of Abraham to have 12 princes or tribes come from him. You have Ishmael, Abraham's son. He bore through his servant Hagar, also had 12 princesses come from his line. And so in the story of Sarah and Abraham, it says in Galatians 4:24, which things are an allegory. So her being 104 years old, having a baby is all allegorical to try to tell you a deeper meaning, a deeper story of the 12 cranial nerves in your brain. You have the 12 spies scouted the promised land. You have Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which was fulfilled after 12 months. You have 12 tribes came to battle. 12,000 men came to battle. The Midianites in Numbers 31, 1,000 from each tribe. You have Solomon appointed 12 governors, 12 district governors of Israel. Now, Israel is the word formulated from having Isis, the female, Ra, the male, El, the power of God. So together you have Israel, male, female. You have the bridegroom. You have Israel in your mind. All right, so 12,000 people died in Ai. 12 baskets remained full when Jesus performed the miracle of feeding the 5,000. The disciples gathered 12 baskets full of leftovers. You have Elisha worked with 12 oxen. 12 priests were chosen when Israel returns after their captivity. Ezra sets apart 12 priests. And the tree of life in Revelations will bear 12 fruits. A tree of life will also bear 12 fruits, one for each month of the year. So each month we ourselves bear a fruit. It is actually on the day that the moon is in your sun sign. We bear fruit and we have 3 days to basically turn that fruit into higher consciousness. And so here there's 2 great systems in the body of man. You have the tree of life, which is the arterial with its roots in the heart, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is the nervous system. So it has its roots in the brain. These 2 trees are physical manifestations of a complicated network of branching energy currents in the aura or superphysical bodies. Dun, dun, dun. What number stood out to you the most in this? Pay attention to numbers in your life if you haven't already. What are they trying to tell you? What do they add up to? Are they aligned with your thoughts? Are they aligned with what you have going on in your life? Okay, so basically this was a fast rundown because I spoke nonstop for 30 minutes, 40 minutes almost. And it is basically just showing you that numbers are trying to tell you something. They are in our history. They are in our now. They are in our future. They are constantly just boom, trying to give you some awareness. So meditate on it. Try to speak to yourself about what it means, and you will get the answers, because the hard part is really getting yourself out of the way and really believing in yourself. I want to just end this off with a little story. Thank you. This is the last thing I'm going to say. So yesterday I was getting a massage, and I always get, not always, but I sometimes get messages from those that have moved on and passed on. And yesterday I was getting a massage, and it had been the fourth time now that the girl giving me a massage, her grandmother kept showing up, and, you know, in spirit. And I didn't want to say anything because I wasn't sure. And I didn't want to be like, hey, it's your grandmother, if I wasn't sure if her grandmother was even alive or not. And it was so insisting that I finally said, look, is your grandmother alive? She said, no, she passed. And so I was like, okay, well, she keeps showing up. And I explained to her like her energy, what she was like. And she's like, yep, that's my grandmother. It's not until I get out of my own way and just believe in my own, what I'm getting, that it makes an impact. So really get out of your own way and trust yourself. Trust the messages that you're receiving. Trust the numbers you're getting. Start meditating and journaling on numbers, because they will help you like resolve whatever it is that you're trying to understand. Some weird magical way, because everything is magical. They're trying to tell you something. So I hope that's helped. I hope that you can pay attention to it in a different way, and that you can come back to it and look at it again and just start seeing life totally different. So thank you so much for joining me. This will be on our unit section in the crown chakra. Next week, next week we're doing the dance. And actually I have somebody coming on who's a dancer. She's a phenomenal international dancer, very well known. And she's going to come on here and talk about the movement of energy and dance. And it's going to be really, really fun. So again, thank you guys for coming. And I will see you next time, 1 o'clock Wednesday here in the tribe. Thanks for joining me. Bye.